In this podcast episode, Pierre Poilievre, leader of His Majesty's Loyal Opposition in Canada, engages in a broad-ranging conversation covering geopolitics, economic policy, social issues, and personal reflections. Key topics include Canada-US relations amid recent trade tensions, the strategic importance of Canadian resources, Canada's stance on Iran, the consequences of rapid technological change, particularly AI, and the domestic challenges Canada faces, such as housing affordability, inflation, and immigration policy. Poilievre discusses the historically strong alliance between Canada and the United States, tracing it back to the early 1800s and emphasizing their intertwined economies and political interests. He criticizes recent American policies, particularly under former President Trump, who joked about making Canada the 51st state and imposed tariffs detrimental to Canadian industries. Poilievre labels this shift as a strategic mistake, urging the U.S. to collaborate closely with its traditional Western allies, including Canada and the U.K., to maintain global influence and economic strength. He details Canada's resource wealth, highlighting that Canada holds the fourth largest oil reserves worldwide and supplies oil to the U.S. at discounted rates. This supply is stable compared to other major producers such as Venezuela, Saudi Arabia, Iran, and Iraq, many of which are conflict-prone. He stresses Canada's capacity to build strategic reserves, especially in the context of potential global disruptions like the closure of the Strait of Hormuz. Poilievre proposes tariff-free trade arrangements and better cooperation to strengthen mutual prosperity and energy security. Addressing the U.S.-Iran tensions, Poilievre expresses strong condemnation of the Iranian regime, accusing it of hostility toward Canada, referencing the tragic downing of Flight PS-752 that killed 55 Canadian citizens and residents. He stresses Iran's role as a leading sponsor of terrorism and contends that its uranium enrichment program is aimed at developing nuclear weapons, posing a greater risk than North Korea due to its theocratic ideology and fundamentalist goals. He supports targeted military actions, like recent bombing campaigns on nuclear development sites, emphasizing these as necessary steps to prevent Iran from obtaining nuclear capabilities. However, he opposes deployment of Canadian troops to the region, emphasizing Canada's current limitations and preferring a focus on diplomatic and strategic support rather than direct military involvement. Poilievre envisions that ultimate regime change in Iran would have to come from within, motivated by popular dissatisfaction with the current leadership. Poilievre paints a stark picture of the current Canadian economy, underscoring struggles faced by the working class, such as inflation, housing shortages, and wage stagnation. He notes that Canada's GDP per capita growth has flattened over the last decade, reflecting a stagnation of real income and opportunity for many citizens. He attributes much of this to government policies that overly regulate and tax economic activity, slowing resource development, housing construction, and business investment. Using vivid examples, he highlights bureaucratic delays and excessive fees in housing development as major contributors to skyrocketing home prices and diminished affordability. Poilievre declares the necessity of speeding up permit processes, reducing taxes on work and investment, and unlocking Canada's vast resources through private sector-driven development without government subsidies. He characterizes the current environment as one where monetary inflation benefits the wealthy elite disproportionately, while decreasing the purchasing power of average Canadians. With Canada experiencing declining birth rates and population growth challenges, Poilievre addresses immigration as a contentious but vital issue. He advocates for a controlled and lawful immigration system that aligns with the country's capacity to absorb newcomers into housing, employment, and social services. Poilievre criticizes excessive increases in immigration numbers fueled by interests seeking cheap labor, who depress wages and increase housing demand without creating adequate jobs or infrastructure. He also stresses that unemployment still exists domestically, and that many Canadians and immigrants who are qualified and willing to work remain sidelined due to industries underpaying or undervaluing local labor. He highlights the significant number of immigrant professionals, including thousands of doctors and nurses, unable to work in their fields due to prohibitive licensing regulations. Poilievre calls for merit-based reforms to unlock these talents, thereby strengthening the economy and diminishing the need for unregulated immigration. The conversation delves deeply into the disruptive potential of AI and automation, with Poilievre acknowledging that this technological wave could fundamentally alter labor markets. He cites examples from his own experience as an employer, where AI proficiency dramatically enhances productivity, allowing skilled workers to effectively multiply their output with AI agents. Conversely, entry-level positions and tasks without AI skills face increasing risk of obsolescence, raising recruitment challenges and youth unemployment. He compares the current AI revolution to previous technological transformations, but warns that the unprecedented speed and global reach of AI may lead to faster and more widespread displacement of jobs. While optimistic about AI's potential to relieve workers from drudgery and increase quality of life, Poilievre emphasizes the critical need for public policy to empower people via technology rather than replace them, advocating for a balance between innovation and human agency. He anticipates possible government interventions, including corrective measures to address inequalities arising from these technological shifts. Throughout the episode, Poilievre conveys a classical liberal philosophy grounded in free enterprise, limited government, and individual liberty. He frequently cites Adam Smith's The Theory of Moral Sentiments to illustrate how self-interest and virtue can coexist through empathy and voluntary exchange. His vision rejects overly expansive government control, which he sees as antithetical to human nature and prone to corruption, exacerbating inequality rather than alleviating it. He critiques what he calls socialism for the very rich, where policies disproportionately benefit established elites at the expense of the working class, resulting in widening wealth gaps. His policy agenda includes simplifying government, removing bureaucratic barriers, and fostering a meritocratic society where success depends on effort and talent, not identity categories or political favoritism. On the complex subject of race and inequality, Poilievre advocates for strict equality of treatment and opportunity without group-based distinctions or enforced diversity quotas. He decries wokeism as a divisive ideology that fractures society by emphasizing identity categories rather than shared individual merit. While acknowledging that prejudice is a part of human nature, he contends that policies should aim to eliminate barriers through fair competition and equal standards, rather than by institutionalizing distinctions based on race, gender, or other identities. He highlights government regulations, such as restrictive housing policies and occupational licensing, as more significant impediments to minority progress than societal prejudice. According to Poilievre, these policies often harm disadvantaged communities by restricting access to affordable housing, well-paying jobs, and justice. He envisions an inclusive meritocracy where individuals succeed based on ability and effort. Poilievre shares a deeply personal narrative about his upbringing, adopted family, and connection with his biological parents. Growing up in humble working-class circumstances with adoptive parents who were school teachers instilled in him a sense of empathy and respect for everyday Canadians. He also speaks movingly about his daughter Valentina, who is autistic and nonverbal, describing the personal and political impact of raising a child with disabilities. This experience has reinforced his commitment to compassionate policies for those who cannot fully provide for themselves, including people with disabilities. He emphasizes the importance of inclusion, dignity, and fostering opportunities for all individuals to contribute meaningfully to society, regardless of their circumstances. Despite challenges, Poilievre expresses optimism about Canada's potential, citing its abundant natural resources, diverse and educated population, and vast landmass. He sees Canada as poised to become a global leader if it pursues the right policies, focused on unlocking resources, expanding trade, and fostering economic freedom. He calls on fellow Canadians to reject complacency and take decisive action to reverse trends of decline. Looking at the broader Western world, he views the maintenance of foundational freedoms and democratic principles as essential to counter external threats and internal stagnation. Poilievre highlights geopolitical risks related to China's ambitions and disruption in traditional alliances, but believes these can be navigated with humility, collaboration, and a steadfast commitment to liberty. Throughout the conversation, Poilievre invokes Stoic philosophy as a guiding principle for leadership and personal well-being. He embraces the idea of focusing exclusively on what can be controlled, maintaining composure amid adversity, and understanding that external events should not dictate one's inner peace. Referencing Meditations by Marcus Aurelius and the poem Invictus, he emphasizes self-mastery, responsibility, and patience cultivated through life experiences and family responsibilities. This mindset helps him navigate the pressures and disappointments of political life while remaining committed to his mission and values, adapting his approach with greater maturity and compassion over time.